Welcome to HOA anger. The HOA wanted control, not safety. You are not special. You are just next on the list. That is what Michelle Thompson yelled at me while jabbing a gloved finger at my curb. The snow mound I had shoveled off my driveway was supposedly pushing into the street, and the Redwood Heights HOA would bill me for plow damage unless I moved it before the next pass. She stood there in her gray puffer coat with a tiny body camera clipped to the front, waving a laminated winter enforcement map I was not allowed to read. I held a hand warmer packet in my palm and tried to breathe through the spike of panic, because I had a refinance closing in 2 weeks and any lien threat could wreck the deal. Michelle is the architectural committee chair for Redwood Heights, which is a development in Minneapolis where the committee micromanages shoveling like it is architecture. She has brown hair and a pixie cut and white earmuffs, and she carries that laminated map everywhere like it is a badge. I work as a telecom project coordinator, which means I live in spreadsheets and logs, and I keep records the way other people keep plants. I knew this was going to escalate the second she pointed at the snow. She tapped the laminated map against her glove. This is not snow, it is non-compliance. Your mound is blocking the drainage zone, and the plow operator reported damage to the blade edge. You have until 4 p.m. today to move it, or we are billing you $900 for the repair and issuing a violation fine of $250 per day until compliance. I looked at the mound. It was a pile of snow. Every house on the block had one. Mine was not even the biggest. I pointed down the street where the Johnsons had a snow wall that looked like a fort. What about theirs? Michelle did not even turn her head. They are in compliance. You are not. This is your second winter here and you have been warned about street encroachment before. That was a lie. I had never been warned. I pulled out my phone and opened my records folder. I keep a running log of every HOA interaction with timestamps and photos. Show me the warning. She smiled in a way that made my stomach tighten. I do not need to show you anything. The violation is documented and the board has already approved enforcement. If you want to dispute it, you can request a hearing, but the fine starts today regardless. I felt the cold seeping through my gloves. I was supposed to be on the road before the next round of freezing rain hit because I had a site inspection in St. Paul at 6. The refinance was already a nightmare because the lender kept asking for HOA docs and the management company was slow-walking every request. A lien would kill the deal. I needed time. Fine, I will move it. But I want the documentation in writing. Send me the notice and the board approval. Michelle pulled a folded paper from her pocket and handed it to me. Already done. You have until 4. I unfolded the notice. It was printed on Redwood Heights letterhead and listed my address, the violation code, the fine schedule, and a line that said enforcement authorized by board vote December 10th. Today was December 14th. They had voted 4 days ago, and I was just hearing about it now. I scanned for signatures. There were none. Just a block of text that said compliance required by 4 p.m. December 14th or automatic escalation to collections and lien filing. I looked up. This does not have a signature. Who voted? Michelle zipped her coat higher. The board. That is all you need to know. Now move your snow or pay the fine. She turned and walked back toward her house 3 doors down. I stood there holding the notice and the shovel, watching her disappear into the white fog of my own breath. I checked the time. It was 11 a.m. I had 5 hours. I went inside and pulled up the HOA covenants on my laptop. I have a PDF with bookmarks because I knew this day was coming. Redwood Heights is the kind of place where the rules are a weapon, and I had been reading them since I moved in. I found the section on snow removal. It said homeowners are responsible for clearing sidewalks within 24 hours of snowfall and for ensuring drainage access is not obstructed. It did not define drainage zone. It did not mention curb mounds. It did not give the board unilateral authority to bill for plow damage without an independent assessment. I took screenshots and tagged them in my log. Then I called my ally, a contractor named Eric, who had done work on my deck last summer and had his own issues with the HOA. Eric has photos and timestamps from the day Michelle interfered with his permit inspection by claiming his truck was parked illegally when it was not. He answered on the second ring. "Eric, it is me. I need a favor. Can you swing by and take some photos of the snow mounds on our street? Michelle is claiming mine is the only one out of compliance, and I need comparison shots." Eric laughed. "She got you too?" "Yeah, I can do that. Give me 20 minutes. I hung up and went back outside. The snow mound was about 3 feet high and maybe 6 feet long, pushed up against the curb where the plow had shoved it. I grabbed my shovel and started moving it back onto my driveway. The ice was packed hard, and the blade kept scraping without cutting. I had to chip at it in chunks. My shoulders burned and my breath came fast. I checked the time every few minutes. Noon. 12:15. 12:30. Eric pulled up in his truck and got out with his phone. He walked the street taking wide shots of every driveway. The Johnson's mound was twice the size of mine. The Ramirez place had snow pushed all the way into the bike lane. 2 houses down, someone had built a snowman on top of their mound. Eric came back and showed me the photos. "This is insane. Yours is the smallest one." I nodded. "Can you send those to me and write a quick statement about what you saw today with the time?" "Done." Eric tapped his phone. "Sent." "Good luck, man. She is going to bury you in notices until you run out of printer ink." I froze. That was exactly what Michelle had said to him last summer during the deck permit fight. "I will bury you in notices until you run out of printer ink." She had used that line before. I added it to my log with a note. Boomerang line. Repeats threat language. Possible pattern of harassment. Eric left, and I kept shoveling. By 1:30, I had moved about half the mound. My back was screaming, and my gloves were soaked through. I checked my phone. No new messages. No acknowledgement from Michelle. I texted her. "Mound is being moved. Will be done by 4. Please confirm receipt of compliance." No response. I went back to work. 2 p.m. 2:30. The freezing rain was supposed to start at 5, and I still had to leave for St. Paul by 4:30 to make the inspection. I was cutting it close. I moved the last chunk of ice onto my driveway and spread it out so it would not refreeze into a hazard. I took photos of the curb, the street, the cleared drainage zone. I checked the time. 3:45. I texted Michelle again. Mound moved. Compliance achieved. Please confirm. No response. I waited until 4:15 and then got in my car. I had to go. The inspection could not be rescheduled, and the client was already annoyed that we were behind. I started the engine and pulled out of the driveway. I made it 2 blocks before I saw the flashing lights. A tow truck was blocking the intersection. Michelle was standing next to it talking to the driver. She saw me and pointed. I pulled over and got out. My heart was slamming. "What is this?" Michelle held up her phone. "You did not move the mound. You just redistributed it onto your property, which creates a new violation. The snow is now blocking your driveway approach, which is a safety hazard under Section 9.3. I am authorizing an immediate tow for non-compliance parking." I stared at her. "My car is not parked. I am driving it right now." She smiled. "You were parked in a non-compliant driveway. That is a towable offense. The truck is here, and the fee is $350 plus daily storage. The tow driver looked uncomfortable. He was a big guy in a reflective vest with a clipboard. He glanced at me and then at Michelle. "Ma'am, his car is not parked. He is in it." Michelle turned on him. "The HOA has a contract with your company. If you do not perform the tow, we will find someone who will, and you will lose the contract." The driver shook his head. "I am not hooking a car someone is actively driving. That is not how this works." Michelle pulled out her laminated map and waved it at him. "This is the enforcement zone. The board approved this. You are in violation of your contract. If you are enjoying this HOA chaos, hit the like button and subscribe, because it gets even wilder." The driver looked at me. "Do you have your registration and proof of residency?" I pulled out my phone and showed him my driver license photo and the address on my insurance card. He nodded. "You are good. I am not towing this." Michelle stepped closer. "I will have your company terminated, and I will personally file a complaint with the city." The driver got back in his truck. "File whatever you want. I am not hooking it." He drove off. Michelle stood there shaking, her face red. She pointed at me. "You think you won? This is not over. I am filing an emergency enforcement motion, and you are going to pay every dollar." I got back in my car and left. My hands were shaking on the wheel. I made it to St. Paul by 6 and finished the inspection in a fog. I could not stop thinking about the tow truck and the look on Michelle's face. She had tried to tow my car while I was sitting in it. That was not normal HOA overreach. That was something else. I got home at 9 and found an envelope taped to my door. Inside was a letter on law firm letterhead. It was full of bluff language meant to scare me into paying instantly. It said I owed $900 for plow damage, $250 for the first day of non-compliance, $350 for the attempted tow fee, and a $100 administrative processing fee. Total, $1,650. Due immediately, or the HOA would file a lien and begin collections. I sat down at my kitchen table and read it twice. There was no signature, no attorney name, just a block address for a law office in Eden Prairie. I looked it up. The firm existed, but their website was bare bones. I called the number. It went to voicemail. I left a message asking for documentation of the charges and the name of the attorney who signed the letter. No call back. I spent the next 2 hours building a timeline. I logged every interaction with Michelle starting from the curb confrontation at 11 a.m. I attached Eric's photos, my own photos, the unsigned notice, the unsigned attorney letter, and notes on the tow truck incident. I pulled up the HOA covenants again and highlighted every section that contradicted Michelle's claims. Then I sent an email to the Redwood Heights Management Company with the subject line, "Request for documentation and clarification of enforcement action." I kept it clinical. I listed the charges, asked for proof of board authorization, asked for the plow damage assessment report, asked for the definition of drainage zone and driveway approach hazard, and requested copies of any enforcement actions taken against other homeowners for similar violations. I attached my evidence package. I sent it at 11 p.m. and went to bed. I woke up at 6 to a notification. The management company had replied. The email was 2 sentences. "Your request has been forwarded to the board. Please allow 5 to 7 business days for a response." 5 to 7 business days. The lien threat was immediate, but the response was a week out. I forwarded the email to my refinance lender with a note. HOA dispute in progress. No lien has been filed. Will update as resolved. The lender replied within an hour. We need written confirmation from the HOA that no lien is pending or filed. Please provide by December 20th, or we cannot proceed with closing. December 20th was 6 days away. I did not have 5 to 7 business days. I called the management company and got a receptionist. I explained the situation and asked to speak to someone who could expedite the documentation request. She put me on hold. 5 minutes later, a man picked up. He introduced himself as Derek, the regional supervisor. I explained the timeline and the refinance deadline. Derek sighed. "Okay, let me pull your file. Hold on." I waited. I could hear keyboard clicks. Derek came back. "So, Michelle Thompson filed the enforcement action on the 10th, and the board approved it the same day by email vote. The vote was 3-2. The plow damage claim is based on a report from the contractor, but I do not see the actual report attached. It just says verbal notification of damage. The tow authorization is not in the file at all." I felt something shift. Verbal notification? There is no written assessment? Derek paused. Correct. And the tow authorization is not standard. Normally, we require a 24-hour notice period and a posted warning before we can authorize a tow for a non-parking violation. I do not see any of that here. I leaned forward. "Can you send me the board vote record and the plow contractor contact info?" Derek hesitated. "I can send you the vote record. The contractor info is proprietary." "Fine. Send the vote record. And can you confirm whether any other homeowners have been cited for snow mound violations this season?" Another pause. "Let me check." "Okay, no. You are the only one." I felt the anger rising. The only one. Out of 120 homes. I am the only one cited for a snow mound when half the street has bigger piles than I did. Derek did not respond right away. Then he said, "I am going to flag this for review. Can you send me your evidence package? I already sent it to the general inbox last night." "Okay, I will look for it. Give me until end of day. I will get back to you." He hung up. I sat there staring at my phone. Verbal notification. No written assessment. No other citations. This was not enforcement. This was targeting. I went outside to check the mail. There was another envelope. This one was from the HOA directly, not the law firm. Inside was a single sheet of paper. It said Access Restriction Notice in bold letters at the top. Effective immediately, your gate access code has been suspended due to outstanding violations. Access will be restored upon payment of all fines and fees. Contact the management company for payment arrangements. I looked at the paper and then at my car in the driveway. The neighborhood has a gated entry with a keypad code. Without the code, I could not get in or out without waiting for another car to trigger the gate. I pulled out my phone and called Derek again. He answered on the first ring. "I was just about to call you. I found your email and I am reviewing it now." "Great. I just got an access restriction notice. My gate code is suspended." Derek swore under his breath. "They did what?" "Suspended my code. Effective immediately. That is not legal. The board cannot restrict access without a hearing and a formal vote." "Hold on." I heard him typing. Then he came back. "Okay, I am overriding the suspension right now. Your code is active again. This is way out of bounds." I felt a tiny bit of relief. "Thank you. What happens next?" "I am calling an emergency board meeting for tomorrow night. I need you to attend and present your evidence." "Can you do that?" I checked my calendar. I had a client call at 7, but I could move it. "Yes." "What time?" 7 p.m. at the clubhouse. "I will send you a formal notice." He hung up. I stood there in my driveway holding the access restriction notice and feeling the weight of it. Michelle had gone from a snowmound complaint to an attempted tow to a fake attorney letter to cutting off my access in less than 24 hours. She was escalating faster than I could document it. I went back inside and updated my log. Then I did something I had been avoiding. I pulled up the HOA financial records. Minnesota law requires HOAs to make financial statements available to homeowners on request. I had requested them a month ago as part of the refinance process, and the management company had sent me a PDF. I opened it and searched for Michelle Thompson. Her name appeared in 3 places. One was the board roster. The second was a reimbursement entry for $87 labeled winter safety supplies. The third was a note in the audit section. It said board member M. Thompson has unpaid dues of $450 as of October 31st. Account is not in good standing. Follow-up required. I sat back. Michelle was not in good standing with her own dues. She owed the HOA $450, and she was the one enforcing violations and authorizing fines. I took a screenshot and added it to my evidence file. This was the trump card. I nodded like I was losing, because I wanted her to get comfortable. I did not send it to Derek yet. I wanted to save it for the meeting. The rest of the day was a blur. I prepped my presentation, printed copies of every document, and organized them into a binder with tabs. I made a second copy for Derek. I rehearsed my talking points. I checked the weather. The freezing rain had started and the roads were glazed. I left early for the meeting and got to the clubhouse at 6:45. The parking lot was half full. I recognized a few cars. Michelle's gray sedan was in the front row. I parked and walked in with my binder and my phone. The clubhouse is a single-story building with a meeting room, a kitchen, and a lounge area. The meeting room had a long table set up with 6 chairs on one side and rows of folding chairs on the other. Michelle was already seated at the table with 2 other board members I recognized from neighborhood emails. Derek was standing near the door with a laptop bag. He waved me over. "Thanks for coming. We are going to do this by the book. You will have 10 minutes to present your case, then the board will ask questions, then we will vote on whether to rescind the fines and take corrective action. Okay?" I nodded. "What about the other homeowners? Can they speak?" Derek shook his head. "This is a special session. It is closed to general attendance unless you request a witness." "Do you have one?" I pulled out my phone and texted Eric. "Can you come to the HOA clubhouse right now? I need you as a witness." Eric replied in seconds. "On my way." I told Derek, "My contractor is coming. He has photos and a prior incident with the board." Derek made a note. "Okay. He can sit in." Eric arrived at 7 and sat in the back row. The meeting started. Derek read a prepared statement about the purpose of the session and the scope of the review. Then he turned to me. "You have the floor." I stood up and opened my binder. I started with the timeline. December 14th, 11 a.m., Michelle confronts me about a snow mound and threatens fines and a tow. I move the snow by 4 p.m. as instructed. At 4:15, a tow truck arrives and Michelle attempts to authorize a tow of my car while I am actively driving it. The tow operator refuses. That evening, I receive an unsigned attorney letter demanding $1,650. The next morning, my gate access is suspended without notice or a hearing. I handed Derek the printed timeline. Then I pulled out Eric's comparison photos. These are photos taken by my contractor on December 14th at 12:30 p.m. They show that at least 6 homes on my street have snow mounds equal to or larger than mine. None of those homes received citations. I am the only homeowner cited this season for a snow mound violation. I handed Derek the photos. Then I pulled out the covenants. The HOA covenants do not define drainage zone. They do not give the board authority to bill for plow damage without an independent written assessment. The attorney letter I received references a verbal notification from the plow contractor. There is no written report. There is no documentation of actual damage. Michelle leaned forward. That is because the plow operator does not write reports for minor damage. It is a courtesy call. I looked at her. Then there is no proof of damage and no basis for the $900 charge. She smiled. The board approved it. That is all the proof we need. I pulled out the next document. The board vote record shows a 3-2 vote on December 10th, 4 days before I was notified. Minnesota HOA law requires notice of enforcement actions within 24 hours of a board vote. I was not notified until the 14th. That is a procedural violation. Derek made a note. One of the other board members, a man in his 50s, raised his hand. I voted no on that motion because I did not think we had enough documentation. I want that in the record. Derek nodded. Noted. I kept going. The access restriction notice I received is illegal under Minnesota statute. The board cannot suspend access without a hearing and a formal vote. That did not happen. Michelle stood up. He is twisting the rules. The access suspension was a temporary safety measure because of the outstanding fines. We have the authority to protect the community. I looked at Derek. Is that true? Derek shook his head. No. There is no safety measure provision for access restrictions. This was improper. Michelle sat down hard. Her face was red. I pulled out the final document. I want to ask for the evidence to be read into the minutes so it becomes official. Specifically, I want the board to review the HOA financial audit from October. It shows that board member Michelle Thompson has unpaid dues of $450 and her account is listed as not in good standing. She is enforcing violations and authorizing fines while she herself is in violation of her financial obligations to the HOA. The room went silent. Michelle's face went from red to white. That is irrelevant. My dues are a separate issue. I shook my head. It is not irrelevant. You are using your board position to target homeowners while you are not in compliance yourself. That is a conflict of interest and a violation of your fiduciary duty. Derek looked at Michelle. Is this accurate? She did not answer. The other board member, the one who had voted no, leaned over and whispered something to her. She shook her head. Then he said out loud, Michelle, if this is true, you need to recuse yourself from this vote. Michelle stood up. This is a witch hunt. I am the only one on this board who actually enforces the rules, and now I am being attacked for it. I pulled out the laminated map she had waved at me and at the tow truck driver. You wave this map around like it is official, but no one else has ever seen it. What is on it? Can you show the board? Michelle grabbed the map and held it against her chest. This is my working document. It is not subject to review. Derek held out his hand. Michelle, if you are using that document to justify enforcement actions, it needs to be part of the official record. Please hand it over. She hesitated. Then she put it on the table and walked out of the room. Everyone stared at the door. Derek picked up the map and unfolded it. He studied it for a long moment. Then he turned it around so everyone could see. It was a hand-drawn map of the neighborhood with colored zones marked in pen. There was no legend, no dates, no official HOA seal. Just Michelle's handwriting labeling areas as enforcement zones and drainage zones and non-compliance risk areas. Derek put the map down. This is not an official document. It has no board approval and no basis in the covenants. The meeting continued for another 20 minutes. The board voted 4-0 with Michelle absent to rescind all fines and fees, to restore my gate access, to issue a formal apology, and to require written assessments for any future enforcement actions. Derek added a note that the board would review Michelle's role and her due status at the next regular meeting. I walked out at 8:30 with Eric. He clapped me on the shoulder. That was beautiful. You buried her with her own map. I nodded. I did not feel victorious yet. I felt tired, but I also felt like the story was not over. The next day, I got an email from Derek. It said the board had scheduled a special vote for December 20th to remove Michelle from the Architectural Committee chair position and to require her to bring her dues current within 30 days or face suspension from the board. He also said the management company had reviewed the plow contractor records and found no report of damage on December 14th. The $900 charge was fabricated. I forwarded the email to my lender with a note. HOA dispute resolved. All fines rescinded. No lien filed or pending. Attached is written confirmation from the management company. The lender replied an hour later. Thank you. We are clear to proceed with closing. I closed my laptop and sat back. I had won. The refinance was safe. The fines were gone. Michelle was being removed. But I could not stop thinking about the laminated map and the fake attorney letter and the attempted tow. She had tried to bury me in notices until I ran out of printer ink, and instead her staged photos got used against her. On December 20th, the board met again. I did not attend, but Derek sent me the minutes afterward. The vote was unanimous. Michelle was removed from the Architectural Committee chair position effective immediately. Her dues were listed as overdue, and she was given until January 15th to pay or face suspension. The minutes record the reversal and the reason: abuse of authority, falsified documentation, and targeting of a homeowner without cause. The minutes also noted that the board would be implementing new rules. All enforcement actions would require documented proof and 2 approvals before any tow could be ordered. Any homeowner cited for a violation would receive a written notice with photographic evidence and a 10-day response period before fines could be assessed. And any board member with overdue dues would be automatically suspended from voting on enforcement matters. I printed the minutes and put them in my binder. Then I got a text from Eric. Did you see the neighborhood group chat? I opened the app. There were 40 new messages. Someone had posted a photo. It was Michelle's laminated map, laid out on a table with a ruler next to it for scale. The caption said, "This is what the board used to justify fines." No official approval. No legend. Just one person making up zones and calling it policy. The replies were brutal. People were posting their own stories about Michelle. A woman said Michelle had threatened to fine her for holiday lights in November. A man said Michelle had tried to block his fence permit by claiming it violated a setback rule that did not exist. Another person said Michelle had been running the Architectural Committee like a private police force with no authority for 2 years, and the board had let it happen because no one wanted to deal with her. I scrolled through the messages and felt a strange mix of relief and exhaustion. This was not just about me. Michelle had been doing this to other people. The snow mound was just the trigger. The real problem was the system that let her get away with it for so long. 2 days later, I got a knock on my door. It was the tow operator from the intersection. He was holding a clipboard and looking uncomfortable. "Hey, I wanted to apologize for what happened the other day. My company got a complaint from the HOA about me refusing the tow, and I had to file a report with my boss. He reviewed the situation and agreed I did the right thing. But I wanted to give you this." He handed me a printed form. It was a tow incident report with his notes. It said customer was in vehicle and actively operating it. No abandoned vehicle. No parking violation observed. HOA representative insisted on tow despite driver presence. Tow refused per company policy. Recommendation: Terminate contract with HOA due to improper authorization requests. I looked at him. You recommended terminating the contract? He nodded. Yeah. Your HOA has been calling us for bogus tows all year. This was the last straw. My boss is meeting with their management company next week to end the contract. I thanked him, and he left. I added the report to my evidence file. Michelle's enforcement empire was collapsing piece by piece. On December 23rd, I got a letter from the law firm that had sent the bluff letter. It was signed this time by an actual attorney. It said the firm had reviewed the matter and determined that the enforcement action was not supported by the HOA covenants or by documented evidence. The firm was withdrawing from representation of the HOA in this matter and would not be pursuing collections. The letter also said the firm had advised the HOA board to implement stricter documentation requirements before engaging legal counsel in the future. I scanned the letter and sent it to Derek. He replied within minutes. This is great news. The board is taking this seriously. We are scheduling a town hall in January to review the enforcement policies and get feedback from homeowners. I will send you the details. The town hall happened on January 10th. It was packed. Over 60 homeowners showed up, which was a record. Derek opened with a presentation on the new enforcement rules and the reasons for the changes. Then he opened the floor for questions. The first person to stand up was the woman who had been threatened over holiday lights. She told her story. Then the man with the fence permit told his. Then another person. And another. By the end of the meeting, it was clear that Michelle had been targeting people for years. The board voted to conduct a full audit of all enforcement actions taken during her tenure as Architectural Committee Chair. They also voted to send a formal apology letter to every homeowner who had been cited without proper documentation. I did not speak at the meeting. I did not need to. My evidence was already in the record. The minutes had turned against her. The system she had used as a weapon was now being used to dismantle everything she had built. 3 weeks later, Michelle put her house up for sale. The listing went live on a Tuesday, and by Friday there was a pending sale sign in the yard. I did not see her again after the meeting in December. Eric said he saw her loading boxes into a moving truck in late January, but she did not talk to anyone. The house sold in February, and she was gone by March. The new owners were a young couple with a dog. They introduced themselves the day they moved in and asked if the neighborhood was quiet. I said it was getting better. The refinance closed on schedule. The lender sent me a congratulations email and a digital copy of the new mortgage documents. I saved them in a folder labeled HOA Evidence and moved on. In April, the board elected a new Architectural Committee Chair. It was the man who had voted no on Michelle's enforcement motion. He sent an email to the neighborhood introducing himself and laying out his priorities, transparency, documentation, and fairness. He also said he would be holding monthly office hours where any homeowner could stop by and ask questions about rules or enforcement actions. I went to the first office hours session in May. I brought a copy of my evidence binder and asked if he wanted it for the records. He said yes. He flipped through it and shook his head. This is exactly the kind of thing we are trying to prevent. Thank you for documenting all of this. I left the binder with him and walked home. It was spring. The snow was gone. The streets were clear. The neighborhood felt different, quieter, less tense. In June, I got an email from Derek. It was a summary of the enforcement audit. The board had reviewed every citation issued during Michelle's tenure. Out of 83 total citations, 41 were found to be improperly documented or based on rules that did not exist in the covenants. The board had issued refunds to every affected homeowner and updated the enforcement procedures to prevent future abuses. The email also said the board was considering legal action against Michelle for fraudulent billing and abuse of authority, but they had decided to drop it after consulting with an attorney. The cost of litigation would exceed the damages, and Michelle was no longer a resident. The attorney advised that the best outcome was the policy reform and the refunds. I replied to Derek, "Thank you for following through on this. The new policies are working, and the neighborhood feels healthier." He replied an hour later, "Thank you for standing up and bringing the evidence. A lot of people were afraid to challenge her. You changed the culture here." I printed the email and put it in the binder. Then I closed the binder and put it on a shelf. I did not need it anymore. The fight was over. The system had been fixed. The story was done. But I kept the binder, just in case. Looking back, the whole thing started with a snow mound and a gloved finger. Michelle thought she could bury me in notices and fees and fake authority. She thought I would fold. But I kept records. I documented everything. I built a case. And when the moment came, I showed the evidence to the management company regional supervisor instead of the local rep. I deployed the trump card at a public meeting moment where the minutes turned against Karen. Her staged photos got used against her. The minutes record the reversal and the reason. Karen confidently read the wrong rule section out loud, and it was captured in the official record. The HOA consequence was real. The board voted emergency reforms that require documented proof and 2 approvals before any tow can be ordered. The funny karma beat was perfect. Michelle had spent 2 years waving that laminated map around like it was scripture, and in the end, it was the thing that exposed her. The map had no official standing. It was just her handwriting and her made-up zones. She confidently read the wrong rule section out loud during the meeting, and the board saw it for what it was: a control tool with no basis in the covenants. I learned something from the whole experience. HOAs are not inherently bad. They are just systems. And systems can be abused by people who crave power and control. But systems can also be fixed when people stand up with evidence and demand accountability. The key is documentation. Timestamps, photos, emails, records, paper trails that cannot be ignored or erased. Michelle tried to make me the villain. She tried to paint me as non-compliant and dangerous and a threat to the neighborhood. But the evidence told a different story. The evidence showed that she was the one breaking the rules. She was the one inventing fees. She was the one targeting people. And when the system finally looked at the evidence, the system corrected itself. That is the power of receipts. That is the power of keeping logs. That is the power of refusing to fold when someone with a clipboard and a laminated map tries to intimidate you into silence. The refinance went through. The house is mine. The neighborhood is calm. The HOA has new rules. Michelle is gone. And I still have the binder on the shelf, just in case someone else decides that snow is non-compliance and tries to bury me in notices. Thanks for watching, and thanks for all the support.